Hook opening mystery. Every night, my cat stared into the same corner unmoving. It gave me chills. At first, I thought it was just a quirk. Luna the orange tabby was always a bit eccentric. She'd meow at the washing machine, sprint through the hallway at 3 a.m., and stare out the window like she was watching ghosts. Typical cat stuff, right? But this was different. It started on a rainy Thursday evening. I remember it because I had just moved into the apartment 3 days prior. Everything still smelled like cardboard and fresh paint. The floors creaked like they hadn't been walked on in years, and the walls were to white steel almost, like they hadn't absorbed any life yet. Luna wandered the new place excitedly at first, rubbing her face against door frames and leaping onto every countertop like a furry explorer. But that night, she stopped. She sat in the corner of the living room where the two walls met beneath the ceiling and just stared. Her ears perked, her pupils wide. Not the casual, lazy stare of a sleepy cat. This was focus, obsession. Her tail twitched rhythmically, the way it does when she's about to pounce. But there was nothing there. I laughed. What are you doing, Luna? Chasing ghosts? She didn't react, not even a flick of the ear. She sat there, eyes locked on that one spot, for nearly an hour. I tried to tempt her away with toys, treats, even her favorite blanket. Nothing worked. Eventually, I picked her up and placed her on the couch beside me. She didn't protest, but the moment I looked away, I caught her out of the corner of my eye, slipping off the couch and slinking back to the same corner, staring, silent, still. I left the room lights on that night. I wasn't scared exactly, but something about it made the hair on my arms stand up. You know that feeling? Like the air in the room shifts and becomes heavier. Colder just enough to make you uneasy, but not enough to scream. That was the start. It didn't happen every day at first, only occasionally. Maybe once every few nights, but always the same time around 10:30 p.m. Luna would get up from wherever she was napping, walk directly to the same corner, sit down, and stare. For hours. No blinking, no sounds, just watching. It became routine, in the worst way. I stopped trying to distract her. It didn't work, and honestly, it just made me feel silly. I even joked to a co-worker about it, saying, I think Mike had found a ghost roommate. We laughed, but deep down, I wasn't really joking, because over time, it started to affect me. I couldn't relax in the living room anymore. Every time I tried to watch a movie or read, I'd glance over and see her in that position, perfectly still, perfectly alert, like something was there, just outside my range of vision. Sometimes I'd look with her, just to reassure myself. The corner was always empty, but it felt like it wasn't. One night, I turned off all the lights except for the TV and decided to film her behavior. I wanted to see how long she would sit there if I didn't interfere. I hit record, placed my phone on the coffee table, and watched from the couch. 30 minutes passed, then 45, then over an hour, and still she stared. I finally gave up and went to bed, leaving her in the living room. In the morning, when I checked the footage, I noticed something odd. At exactly 12:17 a.m., the camera glitched. Just for a second. A quick flash of static. It didn't seem like much, except my phone never glitched. It was brand new. I rewound the video and played that exact second over and over again. The screen fuzzed and cleared so quickly I almost missed it. But I could have sworn for just one from other was a faint blur near the ceiling. A dark smear. I convinced myself it was nothing. Probably a compression error or a dust particle catching the light. But I couldn't shake the feeling, and neither could Luna. That night, I tried something different. I stood next to her, mimicking her pose, and looked up at the corner myself. Nothing but drywall and shadows. But the longer I stood there, the more the shadows seemed to shift. Like the darkness was just a little thicker in that one place. I didn't say it out loud, but I wondered what if she really was seeing something I couldn't. Cats are supposed to be sensitive, right? to vibrations, sounds, even things we don't understand. I brushed it off. Too many horror movies, I told myself. I had just moved, I was tired, and the stress was getting to me. But then something happened that I couldn't explain away. Something I saw. Something that made me believe Luna wasn't staring at nothing. She was staring at something, something real. And I wasn't alone anymore. Setting the scene. A quiet apartment. Single woman. Her cat, Luna, recently acting strange. When I first moved into the apartment, I thought it would be a fresh start. The old place had been to loud-thin walls, upstairs neighbors who seemed to wear bricks for shoes, and sirens that never stopped screaming past my window. I needed quiet, space, a place where I could finally breathe. And this place was perfect, maybe. A second-story unit tucked at the end of a narrow hallway, just 3 other neighbors on the floor. The building was old but clean, built sometime in the early 70s, with wooden floors that creaked under every step. Large windows let in pale morning light, and the rent shockingly affordable, almost suspiciously so. The day I signed the lease, the landlord said something odd. "You've got the quiet one," he smiled, handing over the keys. "People like that unit. Not much noise." He didn't elaborate. I didn't ask. I moved in that weekend. It was a cloudy Sunday afternoon. Gray skies, a drizzle on the windows, and the hum of distant traffic. My boxes sat unopened in the living room. I didn't have much, just books, some clothes, and my cat Luna, curled up in her travel crate, blinking slowly at the empty space, like she wasn't quite sure she wanted to be there. I let her out first. She padded carefully across the floor, tail flicking behind her, sniffing the corners and peeking under the couch. She always did that in new places, like she was checking for something or someone. The apartment had 3 rooms, a bedroom, a small kitchen with a creaky pantry door, and a living room that opened to a short hallway leading to the bathroom. Nothing fancy. Everything felt hollow at first, like the walls hadn't heard a voice in years. I set up a few essentials, plugged in a nightlight, and tried to settle in. That first week, Luna was restless. She paced at night. She'd sit at the foot of the bed and stare down the hallway, eyes wide, ears twitching. Once or twice, I caught her growling at the pantry door. No obvious reason. Nothing inside. I checked. I figured it was just the adjustment. New smells, new sounds, new ghosts, maybe. I laughed to myself when the thought crossed my mind. But Luna didn't laugh. She didn't even blink. I started noticing other things. The air felt different, not cold exactly, but still, like the apartment was holding its breath. There were no drafts, no movement. Even with the windows open, the curtains barely shifted. At night, it got worse. The silence deepened like something pressing against my ears, muting the world. And then came the corner, that one spot in the living room. It was an ordinary corner by all appearances. Beige paint, no windows, no outlets. Just a place where 2 walls met and vanished into shadow. But that's where Luna kept going. Every night, always at the same time. It was as if something called to her. Some invisible thread pulling her to that spot. She'd sit down, straighten her back, and stare upward. Her head would tilt ever so slightly, like she was tracking something moving along the ceiling. And she wouldn't move. Not even if I called her. Not even if I picked her up and carried her to another room. She'd go back. Once, I tried closing the door to the living room to keep her out. I was tired of the staring. It was making me feel paranoid, like I was living with someone or something she couldn't see. But Luna scratched at the door until I opened it again. She didn't want food. She didn't want to play. She just wanted to sit in that damn corner. And she wasn't the only one who felt something. After a while, I noticed that my phone wouldn't charge overnight if I left it in the living room. I tested multiple outlets. The charger worked fine in the bedroom, but in the living room, It would stop charging around midnight every time. Sometimes I'd wake up to find the battery drained completely. The microwave clock would reset itself too. Not just flashing 12 o'clock, but resetting as if there had been a short power cut. Except, the rest of the apartment was fine. The kitchen light, the fridge, the hallway lamp, they were untouched. Only the microwave clock would blink, and only during the early morning hours. At first, I told myself it was faulty wiring. Then, one morning, I found a dead fly in the corner, nothing unusual. The next day, 2 more. By the end of the week, there were 6 scattered near the baseboard, all in the same spot where Luna stared. I vacuumed them up, thinking maybe there was a nest nearby, but I couldn't find any source. No cracks in the wall, no smell, nothing. Just dead insects, and the cat who never looked away. I stopped inviting friends over. I didn't want to explain. How do you say, "Sorry, don't sit there"? My cat thinks a ghost lives in that corner. They'd laugh, or worse, they'd believe me. I wasn't ready for either reaction, but I started believing myself, because strange things kept happening. My dreams became vivid. Night after night, I saw the same hallway, not mine exactly, but similar, too narrow, too dark. I'd walk down it barefoot, the floorboards freezing under my feet, the walls pulsing slightly like they were breathing. At the end of the hallway was always a closed door. I never opened it. Luna would be there in the dream too, always sitting in front of the door, staring, silent, and in the morning, I'd find her in the same position at the base of the corner in the living room, staring, as if the dream was bleeding into real life. I started sleeping with the light on, a small lamp in the bedroom. I felt childish doing it, but the darkness seemed too thick, like it wasn't empty anymore, like something was in it, watching. One night, as I lay awake, I heard something, a soft knock, not on the door, on the wall. 3 gentle taps, tap, tap, tap. I held my breath. It came from the corner, the one Luna watched. I sat up, heart pounding in my chest, and listened. Nothing, just silence. Luna didn't move. She was already staring at the spot, as if she'd been waiting. I got out of bed, grabbed a flashlight, and walked into the living room. The air felt thick, like walking underwater. The flashlight flickered once as I passed the threshold. Just once. I scanned the corner. Nothing. No one. Just a wall. But Luna was sitting beneath it again, tail curled neatly around her paws, eyes locked upward. I knelt beside her and followed her gaze. There was nothing there, just paint and shadow, but the feeling wouldn't go away, like I was being watched, like something was waiting just out of sight. That's when I noticed something new. A crack, a thin, hairline fracture running up the wall, invisible in daylight, only noticeable under the flickering beam of my flashlight. It hadn't been there before. I was sure of it. I reached out to touch it. The wall felt colder than the rest, like ice. Luna hissed. She leapt up and swatted at my hand, claws out, her body arched and tense. I stumbled back. The flashlight fell, rolling across the floor, casting erratic shadows on the walls. When I picked it up again, Luna had returned to sitting, calm, composed. But she wouldn't stop staring, and now neither could I. First strange incident. The cat growls at the empty corner. Lights flicker. Cold spots appear. The first time Luna growled, it didn't sound like her. She wasn't a vocal cat. She chirped, sometimes meowed at birds outside, and purred when she was happy. But this was different. It wasn't playful or curious. It was deep guttural, like something ancient clawing its way out of her throat. It happened on a Wednesday night. I remember, because I had been sitting on the floor with a bowl of popcorn, watching reruns on my laptop. The lights were dim, just the warm glow of a lamp in the corner, and the screen in front of me. Luna had been napping, curled in a crescent shape near my feet. until she suddenly sat upright, ears stiff, tail puffed. Then the growl, low, menacing, rising. I paused the video. Luna. She didn't look at me. Her body twisted toward the same corner of the room, one she always watched boot this time. She didn't just stare. She hissed, loud, spitting. Her body arched like a Halloween decoration, and she backed away slowly, one paw at a time. Her eyes locked on the empty wall like something was moving toward her. I stood up. There was nothing there, nothing visible, but the air felt wrong, heavier. Still, I took a cautious step forward and sudden lithe lamp next to the couch flickered. Not just a faint dim, it went out completely, then on, then off again. A sharp zap, a pop, darkness. I gasped, stumbling back, nearly kicking my laptop. The room went cold, not like the AC had kicked on, not like a draft. This was unnatural cold, the kind that bites, that seeps into your skin and lodges in your bones. My breath clouded faintly in front of me. In July. Luna, I whispered. She was now under the coffee table, still growling, still staring. The hairs on my arms stood up. I reached for my phone, turned on the flashlight, and swept the beam across the room. The corner was just a corner, empty, plain, harmless, but it felt occupied, like something was standing there, watching us back. My skin prickled, my spine tensed, my instinct screamed, "Don't go near it." I didn't. I sat on the couch, wrapped myself in a blanket I didn't remember grabbing, and held the flashlight like a weapon. I stayed that way for over an hour. Luna eventually crept out and jumped onto my lap, but her eyes never left the corner. That night, I didn't sleep in my bedroom. I left all the lights on, huddled under the throw blanket, and stared at the now still corner until sunrise. The next morning, I tried to rationalize it. Power surge, Luna having a bad dream. Maybe I imagined the cold. Maybe it was just one of those strange nights that doesn't make sense, until you stop thinking about it. But I couldn't shake it, and the house felt different afterward. Quieter, somehow, like the walls were listening. Over the next few days, things escalated. The lights would flicker at random hours around 10:30 p.m. Just before Luna would begin her usual vigil. My kitchen clock fell off the wall with a crash, even though the hook was still firmly in place. I began to notice cold spots not in the whole room, but in pockets. Sudden drops in temperature, concentrated near the corner. I downloaded a temperature app and placed my phone in different areas of the room. Normal, 7 for F. Corner, 59F. It didn't make sense. I checked the windows. Closed, no vents nearby, no reason for that kind of drop. One evening, I lit a candle and placed it in the corner, thinking maybe I was being dramatic. Then it was all in my head, that Luna's weird behavior had infected me with paranoia. But the flame wouldn't stand still. It bent sharply to the side, flickering like there was a breeze. But there wasn't. I walked through the space with my hands stretched out. No wind, no draft. Just the flame dancing in one direction as if something invisible was standing there, breathing. I blew it out, and stopped sleeping altogether. By the third week, I'd started talking to it. I'm not proud of that. I know how it sounds. But something about the corner made me feel less alone, and not in a comforting way. More like watched, all the time. So one night, I said, "What do you want?" It was 2:14 a.m. I checked the time twice. The moment the words left my mouth, the hallway light behind me went out with a loud click. Luna growled, and I knew I'd made a mistake. Whatever it was, it had hurt me. I decided to bring someone in. Not a priest, not yet. That felt too dramatic. But I called my friend Jordan, who was into energy work. Crystals, sage, tarot, all that. We hadn't spoken in months. But I texted her, "Do you still do house clearings?" She replied within minutes, "Yes." Why? I sent her a video I had taken of Luna growling, the candle flame bending, the temperature difference. Her answer came fast. I'll be there tomorrow. Don't speak to it again." Jordan arrived with a small black bag and eyes that told me she was more worried than she let on. "You didn't mention your cat was doing that every night," she said as Luna immediately made her way to the corner, sitting like a statue. "She always does," I said, "every night, same time." Jordan didn't smile. She set down her bag and pulled out a small metal bowl, a bundle of sage, and a piece of smoky quartz the size of her palm. "Has it touched you?" she asked. "No." "Moved anything?" "No, just flickers the lights, the cold, that stare." Jordan nodded. "Let's start." She lit the sage, walked slowly through the apartment, muttering under her breath. The smoke curled around her as she moved. It hung in the air heavy, like it didn't want to leave. When she entered the living room, she froze. "What?" I asked. She didn't respond right away. Instead, she moved to the corner, held out the quartz, and closed her eyes. A beat passed. Then she whispered, "It's aware." "What is?" "This isn't just residual energy. It's not stuck. It knows you're here. It's watching." I swallowed hard. "Is it dangerous?" "I don't know yet." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small bell. She rang it once. The sound echoed through the room, then immediately dropped, muted, as if something smothered the air around us. Luna hissed. The sage flickered. And then Jordan's bell cracked, right in her hand. No force, no impact. Just a thin fracture that split the metal bowl clean in half with a soft ting. We both stared at it. Jordan whispered, "You need to leave." But I couldn't. It was my home. I didn't have another place to go. My lease was locked in. And part of Megad helped me needed to know what this thing was. Why it was here. Why it chose that corner. So I stayed. Even when Jordan told me not to. Even when she texted me 2 days later and said it wasn't human. I didn't respond. Because by then, the lights didn't just flicker, they would surge, buzzing violently before going black altogether. The cold spots didn't just linger, they followed me into other rooms. And Luna? She started growling even when the corner was empty. Sometimes in the middle of the day. Sometimes at me. I stopped turning off the lights. I placed bowls of salt in every room. I downloaded prayer audio files and played them on a loop. Nothing worked. And the corner seemed darker. Not by light, but by presence. Like a shadow that had taken root in the shape of a man. And it was getting bolder. Daily repetition. Every night, same time, same behavior. The cat refuses to leave the room. The days began to blur into a strange, unsettling rhythm. Every evening, like clockwork, Luna's routine would start exactly at 10:30 p.m. She'd rise from wherever she'd been lounging and pad quietly into the living room. Nothing could distract her, no treats, no toys, no coaxing. She was drawn back to the corner, that mysterious, empty corner. For hours, she would sit, unmoving, eyes fixed on the same spot where I was starting to feel my own dread gather. At first, I told myself it was just the cat's odd habit, a quirk born from boredom or stress. But the repetition was too precise, too ritualistic. And every night, the same uneasy energy crept into the apartment. The strange coldness would seep into the room like clockwork too, settling in that corner like a silent storm. And the faint flicker of lights, the subtle hum in the waltz, they all played along with Luna's nightly vigil. I found myself changing my schedule around it. No longer watching late movies. No longer eating dinner in the living room. I started planning my nights around Luna's behavior, avoiding the room whenever possible after 10 p.m. But she refused to budge. One night, I sat next to her. We were both quiet, the silence thick and almost suffocating. My heart pounded loudly in my ears as the seconds ticked by. Minutes passed, then an hour. The only sounds were the faint hum of the air conditioner and Luna's slow, deliberate breaths. She never once shifted her gaze. I followed it, trying desperately to see what she saw. But the corner looked the same as always, just a blank wall painted beige. And yet, I felt the weight of unseen eyes, the pressure of something waiting just beyond the veil of sight. Somewhere deep inside me, a chill crept up my spine. I reached out and touched Luna's fur. Her body was tense, ready to bolt if she sensed the slightest movement. Suddenly, the lights in the room flickered violently. The lamp beside us went dark for a second, and then snapped back on, casting harsh shadows that danced along the walls. Luna's tail puffed out like a brush, and she hissed softly. I swallowed hard and held my breath. The corner seemed to pulse, like a heartbeat in the silence. I wanted to speak, to break the spell, but my voice caught in my throat. Instead, I sat frozen, the weight of fear pressing down on me. Every night became the same. The corner, the cold, the flickering lights, and Luna's unwavering stare. Friends stopped asking why I wasn't answering texts. I stopped answering. The outside world began to feel distant, like a faded dream. I was trapped in a cycle I couldn't escape, watching a cat who seemed tethered to something I couldn't name. One night, a loud thud shattered the silence. I jumped. Luna bolted upright, ears flat, eyes wide. The sound came from the corner. I rushed over, expecting to find a fallen object, a loose picture frame, something explainable. But the wall was bare. No paintings, no shelves, no signs of disturbance. I pressed my palm against the cold plaster. A chill shot through me, deeper than before. I felt something alive beneath the surface, something watching. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake listening to every creak, every whisper of wind against the window. The apartment had become a living thing, breathing in the dark, waiting. Luna refused to leave the living room. At one point, she jumped into my lap, purring softly, but her eyes never lost focus. She wasn't comforted by me, only by the corner. As the nights stretched on, my own body began to weaken. Sleeplessness dragged me down. I felt drained, hollowed out, like the presence in the corner was stealing my energy bit by bit. Sometimes, I would feel icy fingers brush my skin when I walked past that wall. The sensation was so real, I would spin around, expecting to see someone. But there was never anyone, only shadows, the kind that seemed to cling to the walls. One particularly dark night, I swore I heard a whisper, soft and distant, like the murmur of a long-forgotten voice. I froze, straining to listen. It was unintelligible as the hiss of sounds blending into the silence. Luna's fur stood on end. She growled low and deep. I wrapped my arms around myself, wishing desperately for dawn. I started keeping a journal, documenting every incident, every sensation, every flicker of light or drop in temperature. It helped me keep some control, some grip on reality. Sometimes I'd write down what I thought I heard. Words like leave, here, cold. But none of it made sense. I couldn't tell if the voice was a warning, a threat, or a plea. I stopped inviting people over. The apartment had become a prison. But Luna was my only company. She was the only constant in the shifting shadows. One night, I decided to try something. If Luna was connected to this presence, maybe I could communicate with it through her. I placed my hand gently on her head and whispered, "What do you want? Why are you here?" She didn't respond, but suddenly, the room temperature dropped sharply. My breath came out in misty clouds. The lamp flickered violently, then went out. The apartment was plunged into darkness. I scrambled for my phone, the light trembling in my hand. And then, a shadow moved, not from the corner, but from the opposite side of the room. It was fast, darting behind the couch. Too quick to see clearly, but enough to make my heart race. Luna hissed again, fur bristled, and for the first time, I wasn't sure if I was alone. The pattern continued, every night, without fail. Luna guarding the corner, me, trapped in a cycle of fear and fascination. I began to notice my own reflection in the window beside the corner. Sometimes it looked normal. Other times, the reflection was distorted. My eyes darker, my smile twisted. A subtle reminder that something was watching me too. I stopped looking. One evening, I decided to set up cameras. If this was happening, I wanted proof. Proof for myself. Proof for others. I mounted a small camera in the living room, aimed directly at the corner. Then another on the ceiling, looking down. I went to bed early, too exhausted to fight anymore. In the morning, I rushed to review the footage. The first few hours showed Luna calmly entering the room at 10:30 p.m., sitting, staring. But at midnight, the video glitches. Static. A sudden burst of light. And then just for a frame, a dark figure standing in the corner. Not solid. Not fully formed. More like a shadow made flesh. I froze. Luna's low growl came from behind me. After that night, the repetition didn't change. Luna never wavered. She was unwavering. Her loyalty to that corner absolute. I couldn't stop thinking about that shadow. Was it real? Was it a hallucination? Or was my mind unraveling? I didn't know. But one thing was certain. Every night, same time, same place. Luna's eyes fixed on the corner. And I was trapped watching with her. The routine became a ritual. A daily confrontation with the unknown. I grew to dread the hour. But I couldn't look away. Because whatever awaited there was part of my life now. Part of Luna's. Part of the apartment. And part of me. Emotional buildup. She begins feeling watched. Sleep disturbances. Anxiety increases. I stop sleeping. Not in the dramatic, insomnia-driven sense where people brag about working late and only getting 3 hours a night. I mean truly, deeply, couldn't sleep if I tried. At first, I blamed the usual thing: stress, the new apartment, maybe too much coffee. But it wasn't just restlessness. It was dread. The kind that settles in your chest and makes you lie perfectly still because you know if you move, you'll hear something, or worse is something. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt it. The sensation of being watched. Not from the hallway, not from the window, but from that damned corner. I couldn't explain how I knew. I just did. Something was there and it didn't blink, didn't rest, didn't stop, and neither did Luna. Every night, she returned like it was her duty. Like the thing in the corner wasn't just present but waiting for her. Some nights, I watched her sit there with such stillness. I wondered if she was in a trance. Her body barely moved. Her ears didn't flick. Her tail didn't twitch. She became a statue made of fur and focus. I used to think it was creepy, but now it felt like she was the only one keeping it at bay. The anxiety crept in slowly. First, it was little things. Jumping at sudden noises. Checking the locks twice before bed. Carrying my phone with me from room to room. Flashlight app ready. Then it became physical. My hands shook when I tried to make coffee. I forgot appointments, missed work calls. I was snapping at people without meaning to people who didn't even know anything was wrong. But something was wrong. I started feeling like I didn't belong in my own home. As if I was the guest now, the outsider. Every inch of the apartment felt occupied. Like I had signed a lease with something I couldn't see. Something that didn't want me there but also didn't want me to leave. Sleep deprivation is a funny thing. You start hearing things. You start seeing things too. I'd catch movement in the mirrors. Just flashes, just shadows, but always near the edge. Always vanishing before I could look directly. Once, I swear I saw a reflection behind me in the kitchen glasstel, thin, unmoving. But when I spun around, the room was empty. Another time, I heard whispering in the hallway, low, broken syllables, like someone trying to speak underwater. When I pressed my ear to the wall, the sound stopped. It didn't feel like a dream. It felt intentional, and it was getting worse. I tried sleeping during the day. I thought maybe if I flipped my schedule treated daylight like safety it would help, but it didn't. Even during daylight hours, I felt the weight of that corner, felt it pulling on my nerves like invisible strings. I started drawing the curtains all the time. The natural light didn't feel natural anymore. I didn't want to see the apartment. I just wanted to hide inside it. Some days I would lie on the floor and cry for no reason. The kind of crying that comes from the marrow of your bones. And Luna, she just watched, never leaving the room, never leaving the corner, like she was tethered or possessed. I started researching. Forums, blogs, Reddit threads titled things like "Why is my cat staring at nothing?" and "Signs your house is haunted." Most replies were jokes. Others offered sage advice, literally. Burn sage and cleanse the house, they said. Leave out bowls of salt, someone wrote. Play high-frequency sounds. I tried them all. I saged every room until the smoke alarm went off. I placed bowls of sea salt in the corners. Some of the salt discolored overnight. I played chanting sounds on YouTube at full volume while pacing the apartment. None of it worked, and somewhere deep down, I knew it wouldn't. This wasn't something that could be scared away by rituals. It had roots. It was settled. It was patient. The real tipping point came the night I saw the figure again. Not in a camera, not in a photo, but with my own eyes. It was around 3:13 a.m. I'd been awake for hours, sitting in bed with the hallway light on, scrolling mindlessly through old photos, trying to remind myself of life before this nightmare. Suddenly, Luna leapt off the bed. She sprinted not toward the kitchen, not toward the bathroom, but straight into the living room. I followed, adrenaline shooting through me. When I turned the corner, I saw it. Just for a second, a silhouette, standing in the exact spot Luna always watched. It didn't move, didn't flinch. It was like it had always been there, just waiting for me to finally see it. I screamed, not out of fear, not exactly, out of recognition, because something in me knew its shape, its posture, like it had visited me before, in dreams, in childhood, in places I had forgotten. I blinked and it was gone. Only Luna remained, crouched low, ears flat, her eyes wide with terror. After that night, I stopped trying to fight it. I gave up pretending it wasn't real. It was real, and it wanted me to know that. The anxiety became part of me. I no longer felt like I was surviving the haunting, I was becoming it. My personality changed. I grew quiet, withdrawn. I avoided calls from family, ignored texts from friends. When I spoke to people, my voice sounded strange in my own ears, hollow, distant. I stopped recognizing myself in the mirror. My eyes had grown darker, my face thinner. I looked tired in a way sleep couldn't fix, and always, that damn corner watched. I began to hear footsteps at night, soft, deliberate, pacing from the living room into the hallway, then back again. I checked the locks, every time, always locked. No sign of forced entry, but the sound was real, so real that I would hold my breath and wait for it to pass. Sometimes, it would stop right outside my bedroom door. Other times, I could feel the floor vibrate like someone was standing too close. The worst part, the door never opened. It didn't have to. Whatever it was didn't need doors. I bought a cheap security camera online. One of those motion detecting ones you can check from your phone. I placed it in the hallway, pointing directly at the living room. That night, I stayed at a friend's house across town. I couldn't take it anymore. I told her I just needed sleep. She offered me her couch. I didn't even bring my charger. I passed out by 10 p.m. It was the first peaceful sleep I'd had in weeks. Until 3:33 a.m. My phone buzzed. Motion detected. 3:33 a.m. living room. My blood went cold. I tapped the notification and watched the footage. At first, nothing. Just the empty living room. Then, slowly, a tall shape appeared on the edge of the frame, flickering, like static in human form. It moved, not walking but shifting. Then it vanished. The last frame before the camera cut out, Luna, sitting in the corner, staring, as if nothing had happened at all. I returned to the apartment the next morning. The door was still locked. Everything was exactly as I left it, except the air. The apartment felt darker now, heavier, like I had angered it by leaving. Or maybe I had invited it to follow, because the feeling of being watched didn't go away, even at my friend's place. I could feel it lingering, clinging to me like a scent I couldn't wash off. Luna meowed when I returned, then ran straight back to the corner. Of course she did. And so, the cycle continued. The anxiety deepened. The sleep disappeared again. And I started to question everything: my memory, my sanity, my soul. Because this wasn't just a haunted apartment. It was something else. Something older, smarter, personal. It didn't just want to scare me. It wanted to change me, to claim me. And Luna, she knew. She had always known. Tech interference. TV turns on by itself. Phone drains overnight. Security camera glitches. It started with the TV. One night, at exactly 3 a.m., I was jolted awake by a sudden blast of static. Loud, violent. Not the quiet fuzz of a bad signal. This was angry, distorted noise that rattled the walls. I rushed into the living room, heart racing. The TV was on. Channel 0. Nothing but black and white snow, screen flickering wildly. I hadn't used a remote in days. I never left the TV plugged in anymore. But there it was, live and loud, like someone had turned it on with purpose. Luna sat directly in front of it, staring, not at the screen, at the reflection. The screen's glossy surface showed just enough of the room behind us. Just enough for her to track something I couldn't see. I lunged for the power button. The screen went black. Silence returned. But something in the air remained charged, electric, like a storm was about to break from inside the walls. The next morning, my phone was dead, completely drained. I'd plugged it in the night before. Same outlet I always used by my bed. The charger was fine. The outlet worked, but the phone, 0%. It wouldn't even power on. I stared at it in disbelief, then moved into the living room to try a different cord. That's when I noticed the camera light. My indoor security cam pointed directly at the corner was blinking red. Error. No connection. I opened the app on my laptop, heart pounding, and tried to load the last few hours of footage. Corrupted. All of it. From midnight to dawn. Nothing but a black screen filled with static and time codes that jumped and looped like a broken record. I scrolled further back. Every night, same pattern. Between 2:45 a.m. and 3:15 a.m., all footage was glitched, skipped, or missing entirely. Every single night, and always stirred around the corner. I tried replacing the camera. New brand, different network. Same result. Glitches, time distortions. Once, the entire camera system reset itself to factory default at 3:03 a.m. with no input. The files deleted, the settings wiped, as if something had commanded it to forget. The moment I saw that, I shut the laptop. It wasn't just interfering, it was communicating. Then the phone began to act up. Apps would open on their own. Messages typed halfway, filled with symbols I didn't recognize. One morning, I woke up to find my notes app open with a single entry. Don't look at it, it sees you too. I hadn't typed that. I hadn't touched my phone. My heart pounded in my chest. I deleted the note immediately. But it came back 5 minutes later, same text, same timestamp. Luna meowed once, a sharp, piercing sound, and ran back into the living room. The note disappeared. I didn't touch the phone again for 2 days. I tried reaching out for help online. Posted to a private paranormal forum with everything. The videos, the photos, the corrupted footage. No one replied. Not a single comment. Then, an email came. No sender. No subject. Just a blank message body with an attachment. A still frame from one of my deleted camera recordings. It showed me, sleeping, in bed. But the reflection in the mirror behind me showed something else. A tall shadow, standing over me, reaching. I deleted the email, threw the laptop under the bed, and cried for the first time in a week. After that, the interference got worse. The thermostat dropped randomly to 50°F in the middle of the night, no matter how many times I reset it. The microwave turned itself on at odd hours, spinning with nothing inside. The lights in the living room dimmed whenever I walked by the corner oven. When they were at full power, I replaced the bulbs. Same result. Even stranger, I'd hear my own voice echoing faintly from my smart speaker, but only when I wasn't speaking. At 2:47 a.m., it repeated something I'd said earlier that day. "What do you want from me?" Except this time, it sounded altered, slower, like it was underwater, like something else was answering through me. I unplugged every device in the apartment, but the tech didn't stop. The TV turned on again. Luna stared at the corner and let out a long, growling wail I'd never heard before, a sound not meant to come from a cat. I bought a disposable camera, one of those old 35mm point-and-shoots. I thought maybe, just maybe, analog would escape whatever was corrupting my devices. I took 5 pictures of the corner over the course of one night. One at 10 p.m., one at 11, midnight, 1 a.m., and a.m. When I got them developed, 4 of the photos were normal, but the one taken at midnight, ruined. Not just a blur. It was burned. Literally. The center of the photo was scorched. The film melted into a bubbling hole. The photo tech looked pale when he handed it back. "Lightning strike?" he asked, trying to laugh. I didn't answer, because deep down, I knew what caused it. The thing didn't want to be seen. I called the landlord again, asked if anything had ever happened in the unit. He paused for too long, then said, "People don't usually stay long in Debye. That was my apartment. I'm sorry. There's just been complaints. Cold air, lights." One lady said she saw her dead husband in the kitchen, left after a month. Another swore her kids were talking to someone in the wall. I pressed harder. Was there a death here? Silence. Then, I'm not allowed to say. Click. He hung up. That night, the TV didn't just turn on. It changed channels, all by itself, flicking rapidly. News, static, commercials, children's cartoons at 2:51 a.m. Then stopped. On an old black and white film, a man stood in a hallway, staring into a corner, the same way Luna did. I recognized the shot, but couldn't place the film. I tried to press info on the remote. It didn't respond. Then the man on screen turned toward the camera and smiled. His face was wrong. Mouth too wide, eyes too empty. The screen buzzed with distortion, and the sound cut out completely. Just silence. A moment later, the image froze, and stayed. Frozen. I unplugged the TV again. I started recording audio only. No cameras. Just a mic left in the living room overnight. The next morning, I played it back. The first hour, normal. Then around 3:02 a.m., something began. A soft static. Then, a breath. Not mine, not Luna's. A deep, drawn-out exhale. Then a voice. Whispered, hoarse, and wrong. It sees you, even when you close your eyes. Then silence. I stopped sleeping entirely after that. Coffee kept me wired. Fear kept me alert. I sat in the bedroom corner at night, wrapped in a blanket. Luna curled beside me out of affection, but protection. The devices in the apartment didn't wait anymore. They anticipated. My phone would vibrate seconds before the TV turned on. My speaker would hum quietly a minute before the lights dimmed, as if it was all part of a network. Not just interference, but a system, an intelligence, watching, responding, escalating. And still, through it all, Luna kept her post. She wouldn't eat until morning, wouldn't leave the living room between 10:30 p.m. and dawn. Her eyes never blinked, her ears never turned away. One night, I whispered, "Why are you still watching?" And I swear to you, she turned to me and blinked once, as if to say, "Because it is." I began to fear not just what was happening but what would come next. If it could corrupt technology, if it could erase footage, mimic my voice, send messages to my phone, what else could it do? What else was it learning? Every night, it felt like it reached further, into the walls, the wires, the air itself, and I had no shield left, only Luna, only that thin line between the known and the unknowable. And every flickering screen reminded me, I was not alone, not anymore. The reveal. One night, she finally dares to sit and stare too. A faint shadow twitches in the corner. For weeks, I had been a prisoner in my own home, trapped in a terrifying routine, with Luna guarding the living room corner like a sentinel. The nights dragged on, heavy with silence and fear, until one night, everything changed. It was nearly midnight. The apartment was cloaked in darkness, the curtains drawn tight. I sat on the couch, exhausted, heart thudding like a drum in my chest. Luna sat beside me, eyes fixed on the corner as usual, unblinking. But this time, something was different. I felt it before I saw it. A shift in the air, a flicker, a twitch. I turned my gaze slowly toward the corner, and there it was, a faint shadow. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, a reflection, or a hallucination brought on by my sleepless nights. But the shadow moved. It twitched, just slightly, as if trying to take shape. My breath caught. My heart raced. I blinked and it twitched again. The shadow stretched longer, then shorter, an impossible shape, flickering like a bad TV signal. And Luna, she stood up for the first time since all this started, walked forward slowly, eyes never leaving the shadow. I followed. The closer she got, the colder the room became. My breath steamed before me in the frigid air. The shadow pulsed with a faint light of its own like it was alive, breathing. Suddenly, Luna hissed. The sound wasn't her usual growl. It was deeper, darker, almost human. I froze. The shadow twitched again, this time faster, then stretched upward, like a hand reaching out. For a moment, I thought I saw fingers, long, thin, twisting, reaching for Luna. She swatted at the air, then darted back to my side, eyes wide with fear. I sat frozen, heart pounding, unable to speak. The shadow remained, still flickering, not fully solid, but undeniably there. For the first time, I could feel it not just in the air, but in my chest, heavy, ominous, like it was warning me, or maybe inviting me. I reached out a trembling hand toward the corner. The shadow pulsed, then recoiled, as if hurt by my touch. I pulled back. Luna hissed again. The room plunged into darkness. The lamps flickered off. The air grew colder still. In the blackness, I heard a voice. Not loud, not clear, but chilling, soft, a whisper in the dark. You saw me. I swallowed hard. Who are you? I asked. No answer. Just the sound of my own breath and Luna's purring unnervingly close. When the lights flickered back on, the shadow was gone, but the corner felt alive, like a wound, open, raw. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, mind racing. The fear was still there, but mixed with something else. Curiosity. The feeling that this presence wasn't just some malevolent force. It was something trapped, waiting for someone to see it, to understand it. Days passed. I began noticing small changes. The cold spots softened. The lights didn't flicker as often. Luna still watched the corner, but she seemed calmer, less afraid, like a silent truce had been made. I started talking to the shadow, not expecting a response, but hoping. What do you want? One evening, the shadow twitched again, this time slower, like it was trying to form words. The air thickened. A low hum filled the room. Then the voice whispered again. Remember. I shivered. Remember what? Silence. Then a faint image flashed in my mind. A hallway, dimly lit. A man standing in a corner. The same shadow, reaching, trying to escape, trying to warn. I realized the presence was tied to the apartment's past, to a story I hadn't yet uncovered. Something tragic, something unfinished. And Luna, she was more than a guard. She was a witness, a protector, a bridge between worlds. That night, I sat with Luna, staring at the corner, waiting, hoping. The shadow flickered again, and I understood. It wasn't just a ghost. It was a message, a plea, for help, for peace, full sighting. A translucent figure chilled like, crawling slowly along the wall. The night I saw it clearly, the air was heavy with a silence that felt like the calm before a storm. I had spent the evening sitting on the floor next to Luna, both of us fixated on the corner that had become the center of my fear and strangely, my fascination. At exactly midnight, the temperature dropped suddenly, and the soft hum that always lingered in the background seemed to grow louder, like static electricity buzzing on my skin. Luna stiffened beside me. Her tail twitched once, twice, then she slowly crouched lower, her body tense as if preparing to pounce or flee. And then it appeared. At first, just a faint shimmer on the wall, like heat waves rising on a summer day. But it grew clearer, more defined. A translucent figure, small, childlike. It moved slowly, crawling up the wall like an insect. Its limbs were thin and delicate, fingers splayed as it pulled itself upward. Its head turned toward me, though I could not see its face clearly. A vague shape, glowing faintly with an eerie blue light. My breath caught in my throat. For the first time, the presence wasn't just a shadow or a flicker. It was real. A ghostly child. I wanted to scream, to run, but I was rooted to the spot, paralyzed by a mixture of terror and awe. The figure crawled a few more inches, then paused. It seemed to look at me, though I couldn't make out any features. I tried to speak, my voice barely a whisper. Who are you?" The child's figure flickered, then slowly crawled away from me, disappearing into the corner where the wall met the ceiling. The room seemed to sigh, the tension easing slightly. Luna jumped up and rubbed against my leg, purring softly. It was like she knew the child was gone, but I wasn't so sure. Over the next several nights, the sightings grew more frequent. The child would appear briefly, sometimes crawling, sometimes sitting motionless waylays near the corner. Sometimes the figure would reach out a hand, fingers trembling, as if seeking something. Each time, I felt an overwhelming sadness radiating from it, a sense of longing, a desperate need to be seen and remembered. I began to understand that this presence wasn't malevolent. It was trapped, lost, yearning for peace. I started documenting every encounter, writing notes, sketching the figure's movements. I even began talking to it aloud. "Can you tell me your name? Why are you here? What happened to you?" No answers came, only the same silent presence. One night, as I sat watching the corner with Luna in my lap, the figure appeared again. This time, it lingered longer. Slowly, it crawled down the wall toward the floor. For a moment, I thought it might reach out to me. Instead, it paused and vanished right before touching the floor. The emptiness that followed was almost deafening. The emotional toll was immense. I felt a mix of sorrow, fear, and compassion. I knew the child was stuck between worlds, caught in some kind of limbo. My connection to Luna deepened. She seemed to understand more than I did, often staring at the corner with an intensity that chilled me to the bone. Determined to help, I researched the history of the building. I discovered that years ago, a child had died in the apartment under mysterious circumstances. The case was never solved. No cause of death, no closure, just a name and a date on a faded newspaper clipping. The more I learned, the more I believed the child's spirit was tied to the apartment, unable to move on. One evening, I prepared a small space near the corner. I placed a soft blanket and a few toys, a silent invitation. I wanted to offer comfort, even if it was just symbolic. That night, Luna settled beside the blanket, her gaze locked on the corner. The child's figure appeared again. This time, it approached the blanket slowly and rested its faint form there. For the first time, the presence seemed at ease. The room felt warmer. The oppressive heaviness lifted, if only slightly. Despite the small progress, the shadow lurking near the corner sometimes flickered and twisted in ways that reminded me the spirit was still troubled. The nights were never peaceful, but with every visit, I felt a stronger bond between myself, Luna, and the child. The full sighting was a turning point. It changed everything. From that moment, the apartment felt less like a prison and more like a shared space, a place where worlds met, and healing might be possible. Backstory hint: she discovers an old newspaper article. A child once died in this unit decades ago. The unsettling presence in my apartment was no longer just an eerie disturbance sight, was a mystery demanding answers. After the full sighting of the childlike figure, I felt a heavy responsibility to uncover its story. Who was this child? What had happened here? Why was this spirit trapped, unable to move on? I started by revisiting the building's history. The landlord had been tight-lipped, but there had to be records somewhere. One afternoon, I found myself in the city's archive library, a dusty room filled with faded newspapers, old microfilm machines, and the faint scent of aged paper. I sat down at a worn table and searched through decades of news, focusing on the neighborhood and the building's address. After hours of scrolling through microfilm, I found it. An article dated nearly 50 years ago. The headline read, "Tragic Death of Local Child in Apartment to Be." My heart pounded. That was my unit. The article described a boy named Thomas, 7 years old, had died suddenly in the apartment decades earlier. The cause of death was listed as undetermined, but neighbors recalled hearing strange noises and seeing unusual lights around the unit. During the nights before, there were rumors of an accident, perhaps a fall or poisoning, but no official explanation. The child's death was shrouded in mystery. As I read on, the article mentioned that the family moved out shortly after. The building's management had tried to keep the incident quiet, fearing it would scare tenants away. The article ended with a chilling sentence. Some say the boy's spirit still lingers, searching for peace in the walls of apartment to be. I shivered. Back in my apartment, I sat by the corner where Luna always watched. The knowledge hit me hard. The shadow, the childlike figure were connected to Tommy. His spirit was reaching out, still trapped, still lost. I wanted to help. I searched for anything else related to Tommy. Found old photographs, handwritten notes, even a faded birth certificate on a genealogy website. Piece by piece, his life-themed untimely death became clearer. Each discovery made me feel closer to the child. The loneliness, the pain, the unanswered questions. I realized Luna wasn't just reacting to a ghost. She was sensing a trapped soul, one who had never received justice or peace. That night, I lit a candle near the corner. I spoke softly. "Tommy, I see you. I want to help." Luna purred quietly. The air warmed. The shadow flickered, almost as if in response. I began to research rituals and ways to communicate with spirits gently. Not to scare them, but to understand. My goal wasn't just to coexist. It was to help Tommy move on. But the apartment still held its secrets. Strange noises persisted. Cold spots remained. And sometimes, the shadow twitched nervously. Despite the fear, I felt hope. A chance to bring closure to a lost child's story. And maybe, finally, bring peace to us both. Seeking explanation. Calls a medium. Medium confirms. It's attached to the cat. The cat sees it clearly. After days of researching, reading, and grappling with fear and curiosity, I finally decided to reach out for help. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I knew I couldn't face this alone any longer. So I found a medium, a a woman known locally for her ability to connect with spirits and interpret their messages. I nervously booked an appointment. The day of the session, I sat across from her in a dimly lit room filled with crystals, incense smoke curling through the air, and soft chanting music. Luna was perched quietly on my lap, her eyes wide and alert. The medium studied Luna for a moment, then looked at me with steady calm. This cat, she's not just sensing something, she's connected. I nodded slowly. Connected how? The medium closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and began to speak. There's a spirit attached to this cat. The cat sees it clearly, because it's drawn to her. She carries a kind of spiritual tether. My heart skipped. The idea that Luna and the presence were linked made sense in a way I hadn't considered. She continued, eyes still closed. This spirit is not harmful, but trapped. The cat senses its pain and confusion. They are linked, and that connection allows the spirit to communicate in ways you've experienced. Said, staring. The growling, the presence in the corner. I felt a mix of relief and dread. Relief because I wasn't imagining things. Dread because this connection was deeper than I had realized. The medium opened her eyes slowly. You and the cat are both part of this story now. Helping this spirit will require patience and trust. I swallowed hard. Can the spirit be freed? She nodded. Yes, but it must come willingly, and you must help it find peace. I looked at Luna, who blinked slowly. It was as if she understood. The medium invited me to focus on the connection between Luna and the spirit. She explained that animals, especially cats, have heightened spiritual senses. They can see and sometimes carry energies invisible to us. Luna's presence in the corner wasn't just alertness. It was guardianship. I asked the medium if the spirit had a message for me. She closed her eyes again, her voice softening. It's trying to tell you, remember me. Help me be seen. I shivered. I was the bridge now person the spirit had chosen. After the session, the medium gave me tools to help. Candles for cleansing, incense for calming energies, simple rituals to invite the spirit to communicate, and above all, patience. That night, back in my apartment, I lit the candles near the corner. Luna sat beside me, eyes fixed on the dark spot where the shadow usually appeared. I whispered softly, Tommy, I'm here. I want to help you. The air felt thick with anticipation. A cool breeze brushed past my cheek. The candle flames flickered wildly. Luna suddenly stood, her fur bristling. She hissed quietly at the corner, then settled again, her eyes glowing faintly. For the first time, I didn't feel afraid. Instead, a strange calm washed over me. The connection was real, and it was changing. Over the next days, I practiced the medium's advice, speaking gently to the spirit, keeping Luna close, allowing the presence to be acknowledged, not feared. The apartment grew quieter, less oppressive. The flickering shadows softened. The cat's behavior shifted too, no longer tense or defensive. Luna seemed almost peaceful, as if carrying a burden had been lifted slightly. I realized then that sometimes the bond between living and spirit worlds is not about fear, but about understanding, compassion, and the courage to face the unknown. The medium's words echoed in my mind. The cat sees it clearly, and now, so did I. Spiritual conflict. Cat gets sick. She attempts a cleansing ritual. The corner gets darker, colder. The peace didn't last. Just as I began to feel that the presence was softening, as if Tommy's spirit was responding to my efforts, something shifted. It began with Luna. She stopped eating. At first, I thought she was just tired. She had been on alert for weeks, constantly watching, always tense. But by the second day, she refused her favorite food. Her ears drooped, and she slept most of the day curled in a tight ball. The vet ran test blood work, scans, everything. Physically, she's fine, the doctor told me. But something's draining her. It's almost like stress. I knew the truth. She wasn't just sick. She was under spiritual pressure. The presence that had been tethered to her gentle quiet had changed. It was becoming darker, more demanding. Luna had been the buffer, the bridge, and now it was too much. That night, I sat beside her, stroking her fur gently. "Hold on, Luna," I whispered. "I'll protect you now. You've done enough." She purred faintly, her eyes barely opened. The candles I had lit for protection flickered, then dimmed. The corner grew darker than usual. It wasn't just shadow, it was void. A coldness I hadn't felt in weeks returned, seeping into the floor, rising into my bones. The light above the couch buzzed and died. The air turned sharp and brittle, like the pressure before a thunderstorm, but it wasn't outside. It was inside. Inside my home. Inside the walls. I called the medium again. Her voice was more urgent this time. "You must act. The spirit is shifting. The tether it may be unraveling. Or we're tightening too much around the cat." "What can I do?" I asked. "There's a cleansing ritual. You must perform it tonight. Before midnight. Burn sage. Speak directly to the spirit. Invite it to release itself. But be warned if it resists. It may fight back." I didn't hesitate. As the clock approached 11:30 p.m., I prepared the room. Sage bundle lit. Salt line drawn at the room's threshold. Luna tucked gently into her bed near the window, wrapped in her softest blanket. I stood alone in the darkened living room, facing the corner. The blackness in that space pulsed like a beating heart. It was colder than ever. My breath came out in long, visible puffs. I raised the sage and began the incantation the medium gave me. "This is a place of light. You are seen. You are loved. You are free to go." At first, nothing happened. Then, the shadows in the corner stirred. Not gently, violently. The darkness coiled and twisted, spiraling upward like smoke, but thicker, angrier. The floor beneath me vibrated slightly. Luna let out a long, low groan, almost a moan. She wasn't asleep anymore. She was staring directly at the corner, eyes wide with terror. I continued the ritual. "Your time here has passed. This is not your home. You must move on." The shadows surged forward. For the first time, they crossed the boundary of the corner. A hand, a thin, flickering hand, reached out from the wall. Not a child's. Not anymore. It was distorted, elongated. Too many fingers. The skin semi-transparent and ash gray. It grabbed the edge of the salt liney and recoiled, shrieking in a soundless cry that echoed in my mind but not in my ears. I staggered back. The sage almost slipped from my hand. Luna hissed, louder than ever before, then collapsed into her bed, shivering. I gathered myself and raised the sage higher. "You are not bound. You are not forgotten. Go where the light can find you." The entire apartment seemed to respond. The lights flickered violently. The television switched on to static. My phone buzzed non-stop on the table, lighting up with random characters and symbols. Then silence. A full, heavy silence. I looked up. The corner had grown even darker. The darkness stretched higher than the ceiling now, pulsing, alive. And then I saw it again. Tommy. But not like before. He wasn't translucent. He was solid now. Childlike, but twisted. Like something or someone had reshaped him. His face was blank. His body hunched, crawling along the ceiling. Slow. Jittery. Wrong. He looked down at me, his face smooth and eyeless. I choked on my breath. This wasn't just a spirit. It had become something else. Something hollowed out. I stepped forward, salt in one hand, sage in the other. "I know you're hurting," I whispered. "But this isn't what you are. You're not this thing." The boy paused, tilted his head. Something cracked in his neck as he moved. I felt the air around me tighten, like 1,000 invisible threads wrapping around my limbs. Luna cried out from her bed. I turned toward her. She was limp, eyes open, but unmoving. I panicked, rushed to her side. She was breathing but barely, I turned back to the corner, to the thing that was Tommy. "You're hurting her," I said. "Let her go." The figure twitched again, then slid down the wall, curling back into the corner, its form trembling, flickering. The air loosened. Luna stirred faintly. I took a deep breath and approached the corner slowly. "I don't want to banish you," I whispered. "I want to help you go where you belong." I dropped another pinch of salt onto the floor and stepped back into the circle I'd made around myself. Then, I whispered the final part of the ritual. "You are not forgotten, you are free." The candle flame nearest the corner flared, then extinguished. All light in the room vanished for 3 full seconds. When it returned, the corner was empty. The cold was gone. Luna lifted her head, let out a soft meow, and then purred. I collapsed to my knees, overwhelmed. It wasn't over yet, but something had shifted. The presence had been confronted, the conflict exposed, the bond shaken, but not severed, not fully, not yet. Later that night, Luna climbed into my lap and fell asleep. Her breathing was normal again, her body warm, and as I looked toward the corner, I saw nothing. No shadow, no figure, just a patch of wall, still, but heavy with waiting. Twist, open-ended mystery. She moves out, the cat returns to normal. But in her new place the cat stares again. The apartment was quiet again, peaceful, almost. After the cleansing, after the confrontation, I gave myself 1 more week. 1 week to monitor everything, to see if the cold would return, if the corner would twitch, if the shadows would breathe. But the air stayed still. The lights stopped flickering. The electronic static ceased. Luna slowly regained her strength. Within a few days, she was eating again, sleeping in the sunlight, and no longer pacing the living room at night. She didn't hiss. She didn't growl. And she didn't watch the corner anymore. She even curled up there one afternoon to nap. That, more than anything, convinced me the presence was gone, or at least dormant. But I couldn't stay. I couldn't shake the feeling that what had happened there had changed me, changed us. The apartment didn't feel like mine anymore. It wasn't a home. It was a memory. So I packed up and moved. The new place was across town. Bright, freshly painted, no history that I could dig up, and certainly no cold corners or stories of children lost in the walls. I signed the lease, paid the deposit, and moved in over the weekend. Luna adjusted quickly. She seemed happy again, eating, playing, rubbing her head on the walls and window frames like she was claiming the new space. No signs of fear, no shadows, no chill. For the first time in what felt like years, I slept soundly. No waking at 3 a.m., no whispering voices, no flickering lights, just sleep, deep and dreamless. And Luna, she curled at the foot of my bed and purred softly through the night. A full week passed. Then too, I started to relax, to believe it was truly over. Whatever had haunted us was gone, cleansed, resolved, or at least left behind. I didn't light candles anymore, didn't draw salt lines. The sage stayed sealed in a drawer. The past was behind me, until the 3rd week. That's when it happened. It was a Thursday night. I had just finished dinner, and was curled up on the couch with Luna asleep beside me. The TV murmured in the background, a comfort sound more than something I was actually watching. Suddenly, Luna's body stiffened. Her ears perked. Her head rose slowly, eyes wide, unblinking, and she turned, staring into the far right corner of the room. A corner with nothing in it. No furniture, no draft, no history, just a blank patch of white wall. I paused, my heart skipping. "Luna," I whispered. She didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe. She just stared, exactly like she used to, like nothing had changed, like someone was there. I sat up. The room felt fine, warm, normal. I walked over to the corner slowly, step by step. Nothing. No sound. No chill. No shadow. but Luna's eyes followed. Every movement, every inch. Then, as I stood in front of the blank wall, I felt something. Barely there. A prickle, like a hand brushing the back of my neck. I turned sharply. Nothing. I called Luna softly. She blinked, slowly turned away, and stretched as if waking from a nap. Then jumped down and trotted toward her food bowl like nothing had happened. But I didn't forget. That night, she stared again. Same time. Same corner. The next morning, I moved the furniture, placed a lamp there, a chair, a plant. Nothing worked. Every night, just after 11 p.m., Luna would sit, silent and still, staring into that space. I checked the apartment history again. No deaths, no missing persons. I even knocked on the neighbor's door to ask if they'd ever experienced anything strange. Nothing. Everything pointed to this place being clean, new, unhaunted. But Luna disagreed. Was it the same spirit? Had it followed us? Had I never truly let it go? Or worse, had Luna brought it with her? Had it latched onto her permanently? Was she the anchor now? I called the medium again. She listened carefully, then spoke gently. Spirits don't always stay behind, especially not when there's still a bond. Your cat sees things you don't. She might still be the tether. But I thought we helped Tommy move on, I said. Maybe you did. Or maybe what you helped was only part of him. Sometimes spirits leave traces, imprints, pieces, and sometimes the act of seeing them gives them permission to stay. I froze. You mean I invited it? Not deliberately. But once a door is open, some things don't want to leave. I hung up feeling cold again. Not because the temperature dropped, but because I realized something terrifying. It might not have been about the apartment. It might not even have been about Tommy. It might have been about me and Luna. About the act of attention, the bond we formed, the way we both saw, felt, and reached. I sat on the couch that night with Luna beside me. We both looked toward the corner. Nothing moved. No shadow twitched. But the air felt thick again. That silence. That impossible, heavy quiet. It was back. And Luna? She purred softly, eyes locked on the wall, as if she were greeting an old friend, or welcoming something that never truly left. Was it Tommy? Something darker? Something that had worn his shape? Had I helped it survive? Had I invited it into this new home? Or was this just how things were now? Had seeing once changed us forever? I don't know, and maybe I'll never know. But I do know one thing. Every night, at the same time, my cat stares at the corner, and sometimes, when I'm brave enough to look with her, I think I see something too. Just for a second. A shimmer, a twitch, a shape, watching, waiting, remembering, ending reflection. Was it the apartment or something that followed us? I ask myself that question almost every night. Was it the apartment, that cursed corner where the air always seemed just a little colder, the shadows a little too thick, and Luna's stare too unwavering to ignore? Or was it something else? Something that followed us. Something that didn't care about walls, leases, or locked doors. Something that didn't stay behind when I left. Something that came with me. It's strange, you know, how quickly a life can divide itself into a before and an after. Before the corner, I was just an ordinary woman with a quiet life, a playful cat, and no belief in the supernatural. My world was made up of coffee in the morning, online meetings, and Luna's soft purring as I read at night. After the corner, that world cracked, not all at once but piece by piece. I learned there are things we don't see because we don't want to, and others we can't see until something or someone makes us look. That night, when Luna first stared into the corner and wouldn't move, my reality shifted. Just a fraction. But now, looking back, it was enough. I've replayed everything over and over in my mind. Every sign, every flicker, every whisper I wasn't sure I heard. The articles I found about Tommy, the medium's warnings, the way Luna growled before any device glitched or light went out. the cleansing ritual, the confrontation with that twisted, flickering form. All of it seemed like the end of a horror movie, a climax with closure. But real life doesn't end on a neat note, does it? There are no perfect resolutions when you're dealing with things you barely understand. When I moved out, I thought I was escaping. I thought I was putting the past behind me. And for a few weeks, it really felt like I had. Luna returned to normal. I started sleeping again. I let my guard down. That was my mistake. Because even though the apartment was gone, the attention was not mine, and certainly not Luna's. She began staring again, different corner, same look, same unblinking, spine-tingling stare, like whatever had haunted the last place had unpacked its bags in the new one. Only this time, it didn't need a build-up. It didn't need weeks of slow crawling dread. It had already found its way in. Because I had opened the door. I used to believe ghosts were trapped in place, buildings, objects, rooms. Now, I believe some ghosts are trapped in people. Or even in moments. I don't think Tommy's ghost was evil. I don't even know if it was really Tommy. Maybe it was just a memory made flesh, or pain that grew legs and crawled into my world. Maybe it wasn't a ghost at all, but something else wearing the shape of a lost child. Because it knew I'd care. Because it knew Luna would see it. And maybe that's the cruelest part. That it didn't haunt a house, it haunted a connection. Me and Luna. The watcher and the witness. I asked the medium once more if she could come to the new apartment. She agreed. She arrived with her usual calm presence. Her bag of candles, crystals, and sage. She walked through every room in silence. Stopped at the corner. The new corner. The one Luna stared at every night. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. It's not tied to a place anymore. I swallowed. What is it tied to? She turned to Luna, then to me. You, both of you. You saw it. You remembered it. You made it real again. I sat down, the weight of her words sinking in. You mean I brought it back? Not intentionally. But seeing changes things. Feeling opens doors. Once a spirit knows it's been seen sometimes, it can't forget you either. I asked her if it was possible to remove it. She paused, then shook her head. It's not about removal anymore. It's about coexistence, understanding. So now, I don't try to banish it. I don't burn sage every night or chant protective verses. Sometimes, I light a candle and sit quietly with Luna. I let the silence stretch out. I let her stare, and sometimes, I stare too. Sometimes, I see something twitch, a flicker in the corner of my vision. Never long, never fully formed, but it's there, always there, waiting, watching. I don't feel afraid anymore, not the way I did before. It's not that the fear is gone, it's just changed. Now, it feels more like reverence. Like the kind of fear you feel in a cathedral or a forest in the dead of night. Not fear of being hurt, but fear of what you might discover if you keep looking. Some nights, I wonder if it will ever leave. If Luna will one day stop staring. If I'll wake up to a home that's just a home. But I don't think that day is coming. Because now, I understand something I didn't before. We don't just live in this world alone. There are things beside us. Behind us, watching through cracks in the veil. And sometimes, a cat is the only one who sees them. Until you do too. So was it the apartment? No, not really. It was something else. Something that needed a witness. Something that followed you, not to haunt, not to hurt, but to be seen. To be remembered. And now that I've seen it, now that you've heard it, maybe you'll start to notice too. Maybe your pet will stare at something that isn't there. Maybe you'll feel the air shift just a little. And maybe, just maybe, you'll look, just long enough, to see it too.